Look at this. Look at how it looks, and I still have one. Look at this. Amazing. Hi everyone. So today the store is closed. We're not open to the public, and I'm gonna give you a little tease of what we're gonna see today. So we're gonna talk about wrestling. There's so much. I mean, people say Star Wars and Joe's and Marvel, but if we talk about wrestling figures, we can spend hours trying to line up the amount of huge, vast amount of figures that have been made for wrestling. Wrestling for us is very important. We really love wrestling. We actually had wrestlers here, and they came for signings and stuff like that.
So, but listen, I want you to meet the man himself that I'm doing an appearance here from, what is it, from 12 to 3. From 12 to 3. Okay, go ahead and introduce yourself.
Hi, how are you? This is Plastic Universe, and we're very honored to have you here, sir.
Okay, and then what's the place, the address and stuff where people
We
can
are
find?
in Sunrise, Florida, right across the street from Sawgrass Mall on 13001 West Sunrise Boulevard.
Okay, so how long you been here at this store? You
Just
got
a
a
year.
beautiful store.
Thank
there.
you, I appreciate
You know, and what's the website where people can get
Wrestling is a big part of our our system as a whole. We're all wrestling fans here. You can find stuff. You can even find weird stuff. Like, for example, this is, you don't see this often, but this is called Lucha Fuerte. This was made in Argentina. So if you look at him, he's like a He-Man character. So it's like a He-Man bootleg. But in reality, it was a show made in Argentina called Lucha Fuerte, which was a wrestling show. And they use Top Toys bootlegs to come up with characters. And so these are actually real wrestlers that were in the Argentina division. And they used to, there's funny to see some of those commercials when they go and they say, "Hey, buy my figure," and it's an actual He-Man looking like figure. So things like the Warriors, one of my top 10 guys, or even these crossovers with Motu has been really fun to put together, or this newest, in that He-Man scale type of figures, and then the rest of the regular figures that obviously the newer guys. I'm gonna be honest with you, I'm not that much into the newer stuff. I'm more into what was in my days. There are some amazing performers now. I love this couple. I love the way that they behave and some of that stuff. But for me, it was what I used to connect with my childhood. Like these type of stuff. I remember having this type of stuff, and we have some of the carded weird stuff. Not weird, but mostly like these type of stuff that it's sealed and hard to find, sign even. This was a collection that we got. However, today we're gonna talk, and once again, the store is closed today. We're not open to the public, so it's the only way for me to do this type of things. But we're gonna talk about a very dear line of figures that are very dear to my heart, because I played so much with these guys when I was little. I'm doing a quick run through. This is a collection that we got. By no means, oops, sorry about that. By no means it's complete. It's just a big collection that we got. And before I price it out and put it, I'm wearing this shirt on purpose. Before I price it out and put it out for sale, I wanted to talk about it. So let's see if this works here. Maybe here. Now here, yeah, that might work there. You guys see me all right? I hate doing this selfie thing, but I'm by myself today. So let's just start with the first year of the Hasbro. It was a short run. By the way, this is by no means a guide or a visual reference. I'm not gonna talk of variants or weird stuff. Don't use me as a reference. This is just me geeking out with wrestling toys that I played so much when I was younger. Let's just start with this big fella, the ring. There has been thousands of rings. I will dare to say thousands, it's probably hundreds. But this ring was so much fun to play with. I remember having it. This was such a brilliant idea. You know, it had the commentator table with you can put the belt in there, access steps. This is the actual commentator table with obviously the Hulkster on the monitor, the US flag, a sticker with the WWE, and then the ropes were super fun to play with. You have no idea how much hours I spent playing with this ring. So we're gonna start with the first years of the Hasbro. They're not complete. I don't have them all. I want to keep that in perspective. I'm just gonna show them one by one, whatever we have here. So let's just start with Andre the Giant. Let's see. I'm trying to play with the focus. He was such a cool figure. I mean, let me put it right next to Hogan. All right, such a cool figure, such a cool giant, such a fun, you know, famous feud between these guys. The Giant was a character in his own, like, you know, this WrestleMania when he famously lifted him up. I don't think I can do that because by holding the other hand, he lifted him up and slam the Giant for the first time ever, and that's where Hulkamania basically started. This is the first figure on this lot. Then we have Akeem, which he wasn't that much fun. He was cool though. It was cool. It was an interesting character. It was a 1990, guys. This is the beginning of many things in wrestling. Obviously, the Hulkster, rest in peace. I was so heartbroken when I found out he passed away. I wanted to figure it out. We were actually in talks to try to do like a signing event. He was promoting a beverage that he made, and we were in talks, believe it or not, and then not with him directly, with his people, but then I got the sad news that he passed away. The Hulkster, obviously, he was bigger than life in those days. So my story with wrestling is kind of interesting because I was here in elementary, here in the States during elementary, and then we moved back to Venezuela. I'm from Venezuela, as many of you know. Regrettably, Venezuela right now, it's famous worldwide for political reasons, but hopefully that's gonna end soon. And we're gonna be able to get rid of that regime. I'm not gonna talk about politics, we're gonna talk about toys today. But my point is that when we went back to Venezuela, my dad was like, I don't want you to lose your English, and I want you to stay connected to the US. So he thankfully installed a satellite dish at the house, and I wasn't watching Venezuelan television during those years. I was, in order to stay connected and not to lose English, I was watching American television. And one of the things that I found and that I connected with was wrestling and WWF, not WWE, WWF. So obviously Hogan was bigger than life, but nobody knew who he was in Venezuela. So I was that odd kid going to the school and then saying, Hulk Hogan lifted Andre the Giant and threw it on the mat. And they were like, who? So it was kind of weird. But at the same time, I have a lovely memories of it. The Hulkster, I saw him once at the American Airlines Arena. Now it's called differently. I was working on an event. And it was funny because it was like a fangirl moment for me, because I was just waiting for one of the elevators to open. And the elevator opened up, and there were a bunch of people. It was too crowded for me to go in there. And he was standing there behind two guys. And I was just like, and the doors closed, and everybody was laughing their asses out. It's the Hulkster. I mean, the music, the persona. Say what you want about the guy. I know there are things that you know makes him puts him in hot water. Say what you want about the guy. He changed the industry as we know it, and credit where credit's due. This guy, you have no idea how and funny that the belly that they gave him. He's missing his police baton. Rest in peace as well. You have no idea how much I play with this guy. He was part of so many memories, not just wrestling, to be honest with you. He was, you know, he played with He-Man. You always need a cup. Beefcake, Brutus. This one is complete with the pair of tweezers. I met him in Tampa. Super nice guy. His wife was super friendly. That they were so accommodating to the event and to the signing. There, he was really cool. I remember enjoying the little sideshow that he had back in the day. Funny that I never liked this type of, because you were supposed to put it like on the mat and then let it jump. It was a great figure. Not physically, it looks weird, but it's a great figure. I love it. Ooh, look who we have here. Randy Macho Man Savage. And another, I had the pleasure of meeting him before he passed, because we're in Florida, so he was here. I almost didn't recognize him because I met him when he was wearing that weird, dyed black beard and the hair. But he was at a restaurant in Coral Gables, and I'm like, excuse me, sir, can I trouble you for a moment? These guys are used to this, but at the same time, I hate asking for pictures. And they're like, are you Randy? And he's like, oh yeah. I'm like, oh my God. Super nice guy. This was the beginning of an era. Slim Jim. I love playing with this figure. The $1 Million Man, Ted DiBiase. Everyone has a prize. Also met him in Tampa. Super fun guy. Oh, I think someone is coming. We're closed today, guys. It's Monday. Anyways, super nice guy, super cool guy. And so with this guy, I had a different experience. He was super nice, but I had a different experience because when I met him, even though that I'm an adult and I understand the industry, I actually was lucky enough to work as a camera assistant in a few of the WWE events when they were in town. Eons ago. This was like probably 20 years ago. So I've seen the industry from backstage, and I let's say I kind of understand how it works, although I've never been a part of the industry in some degree. But I grew up with this character, so when I saw him, I was connected to the $1 Million Man. He was so mean, so you know, such a big character, and he was such a nice guy. So I was like, wait, be mean, please. But he wasn't. Jake the Snake Roberts. Such an amazing first wave of figures. No wonder these figures are so loved and cared. By the way, these figures are huge in Spain. You have no idea. They got international distribution. I was covering an event in Madrid, and I was mind blown of the amount of figures that were on each table. Every single vendor in Spain had these figures. Jake the Snake, amazing figure, amazing looking sculpt. If I'm not mistaken, the vast majority of the first, don't quote me on this because I know he did a few, but I don't know which ones. But Ron Rudat from G.I. Joe, my very good friend Ron Rudat, which him and Virginia are two of the most nicest people on earth. Besides giving us G.I. Joes, you know, they were everywhere on the store. He worked on this line, and no wonder. I'm not sure which characters he did, to be honest with you, but I know for a fact that he worked on this line, and no wonder. You can tell that the level of the sculpt in these figures are amazing. This first 1990 wave is just like heavy hitters. Maybe not him, but everyone else so far so cool. Ravishing Rick Rude. I don't think this guy gave justice to the wrestler, because the wrestler was huge. The guy was like jacked and huge, and I always thought that he was too small, that he looked kind of weird in comparison to the rest. I mean, not a fair comparison. I'm not gonna grab the giant, but see, in comparison to he was definitely taller than Randy Savage. However, I did like So he was, I can't remember the name of the move, but you know, the whole idea is to grab someone like this, to grab another wrestler like this, and then boom. But I used to put him at the top of the ring and do a full slam with this, you know, the way that they made him. First tag team, and I believe these guys were carded individually. So we got Axis and Smash, Demolition, such a cool. I always like Kiss, the band, the rock band, and in my head they were like a wrestling version of Kiss by the way they were dressed, and I don't know if the focus is not working all the way through, but the way they were dressed, and obviously the faces, the makeup on their faces. And the battery died on me, so just went and swapped batteries and actually swapped glasses, because the other glasses that I have I can see from afar, but this, and I guess I'm older. I noticed that I was doing the video like this. So anyways, I was talking about Demolition and how they're, you know, the resemblance with Kiss, in my personal case, of course. You know, the paint and everything, their faces were so much fun. There's a story with this guy. Smash was swapped the following year. I can see it now, so we can jump to that. However, besides the Hulkster, besides Hulk Hogan, in my personal case, one of the ultimate, no tease intended, one of the ultimate wrestlers out there was the Warrior. And back in the 90s, especially 1990, I'm sorry, he was bigger than life. The Warrior was everything. It was huge. So this was the first Warrior that we got. Obviously jacked with those weird things hanging, but is sculpted into his body. It had the same thing as a barber, the same action feature. I was never a fan of this action feature because it just looks weird. But the Warrior, the like, the entrance and the music. If you think about it, he wasn't that into techniques or you know, he wasn't that like Bret the Hitman Hart, which it's 2 years down the road, or Shawn Michaels. He wasn't into that. It was just that energy that he gave to every single match. You know, that guy stormed the match. The match for like 30 seconds. The music, him, you know, like I love. I remember with this one specifically doing this type of stuff, like putting it like this and like. Love the Warrior. Who doesn't? Who didn't? And I hated when they put out that documentary bashing him. Hogan being one of the main guys bashing him. I know that he apologized down the road. I thought it was horrible, but you know, bless his heart. The fact that he was inducted into the Hall of Fame and died the following day, it's just a horrendous turnout of the event. But the Warrior will always be the ultimate iteration of any wrestling experience ever made. No one has been able to top that level. You can say The Rock. I don't want to turn the comment section into a debate. So let's talk about Demolition. So this guy, if I'm not mistaken, it's this guy. Yeah, this guy. He had another character before this called Moondog Rex, if I'm not mistaken. And people, even with the new look and everything, recognize him. And they used to chant his name. So Vince decided to take him out of Demolition, and a new character came in, and they became. I think I got it right. Crush is his name. And these are the ones that came with a helmet that I don't have. So this starts the 1991 year. So let's just move. Let me put it here, and I love it to see them like this, like all three. All three is kind of fun. So let's do 1991, which is the following year, and let's start with again, Super Slim Jim, Macho Man, but this time it was Macho King. As you can read here, Macho King. He's missing the king's crown and a baton and everything, but this was another character bigger than life. He was such the ultimate performer, and the promos that this guy made, like, you know, the boys and all that attitude, like, oh yeah. He was an amazing performer. I remember him also being a great wrestler, like jumping from the top rope and doing all sorts of crazy stuff. So this year we get, I think they probably did well with the Demolition tag team, because they gave us 2 tag teams, and you know, the newest Demolition on this year, 1991. The Bushwhackers. These guys were fun. I love the way that they were dressed. I used to love wearing this type of camo pants back in the day, and these two just acting funny, like, you know, acting like weird guys, like weird faces, and it was just a nice gimmick, I believe. And so obviously, if you were a kid like I was back in 1991, you had to have this tag team, because even though they weren't game changer in terms of matches or anything, it was just a nice gimmick. So let's stand them up here with the rest of the crowd, and then let's take the next tag team that belongs to 1991, and it's the Rockers. And there's a character in here that I don't really I haven't been able to make peace with it, even though that I understand it's a whole thing, but it's Shawn Michaels. The Rockers, I remember this moment, you know, it's a famous moment when Shawn betrayed Marty and kicked him at the barber shop, and I believe it was at the barber shop or at Rudy Piper. I'm not an expert on this, so don't cook me on the comments if I say something incorrectly. I'm just going through this collection as a guy who used to play with these guys. So in the following year, I'll talk about my feud with Shawn Michaels. But this is an A-OK tag team. It was never that popular, and the figures were like meh. But you know, some people connect with them, and of course they're part of that long-standing history. All right, founding father of a new generation of amazing wrestlers. This guy is actually hard to find. I think, if I'm not mistaken, Mr. Road here have. I think I recall seeing variants of the polka dots. Such a cool figure. However, when I was in 1991, for me, these guys represented the previous wrestling that I wasn't aware of, because basically everything started with me with Hogan and the Hulkamania and all that. So I know that they were, like, you know, old timers from that era, and I was more into newer characters or wrestlers than these guys. So he wasn't like, if I would have, back in 1991, if I have to go into a toy aisle and I have the option, like my dad used to say, pick one, I would have never picked him. Because back in the actual show on TV, he was never that relevant. I know he's hard to find, but, you know, let me put this up. Oh, I love this guy. He's missing the 2x4. Oh, look at that face. Look at that face. He was such a cool character as well. That entrance was super iconic, and the music and everything. And I remember the weird faces. Too bad he doesn't have the 2x4. I mean, good luck trying to find that, right? So we have another one. This is another cool year. Superfly Jimmy Snuka. The figure was A-OK. It wasn't like, you know, they had that action figure the action feature that I already explained that it's not my favorite, but I remember, so this was his iconic, his finisher, if I recall correctly, was getting on the top rope and then doing that thing and then jumping, game over. So the fact that you could somehow recreate that movement was kind of fun to, you know, but at the same time, figure wise, he was like, meh. Big legend though, big legend. So I'm leaving the heavy hitters for the end. this is the one that I had the most, a $1 Million Man version with the green suit and the gold belt. This is the one that I play so much with this guy. So when I met him in Tampa, it was for me it was like, you know, amazing. So if you compare the 1990, 1991, I'll stick to this one, although this is more show accurate, if you will. But this was such a cool. He was such a popular character because if you think about it, he got another figure the following year, so they decided to make him as well. I'm missing figures in this year, so it's not like it's a complete run. So by memory, I can't tell you who am I missing. So Roddy Piper, such an amazing wrestler, such an amazing figure. That shirt, Hot Rod, means so much. He was an amazing performer, another guy that basically gave his life to the business and the industry and changed the equation into how the business was, you know, was made. This was the action figure of the action feature of the figure. Such a cool character, Dusty Rhodes. And then of course the Hulkster. I play so much with this one as well because gotta eat those vitamins, brother. Gotta say your prayers, eat your vitamins. Hulkamania going wild. Rest in peace, Hulkster. Such a nice figure, especially with that position and the shirt, and you know, bigger than life. Hogan was bigger than life back then. And then we got the Honky Tonk Man, missing his guitar. Once again, just like Mr. Rhodes here, he belongs in my head to that generation of guys that were too old for those years. So they carry that veteran status from years that I wasn't aware of, but I do remember, and we got now the Ultimate Warrior with a better sculpt than the first one. So, you know, they improved the way it looked. Obviously, you got to put money on the Warrior. They made this. You have no idea how many characters I placed like this being lifted by the Ultimate Warrior, because he could. He was jacked as hell. And funny enough, and this too belongs to the same year. And I think it was the international whatever title that Honky Tonk Man was there and like, is there anybody in the back that can come and give me a real fight, whatever. And then the music started like, chun, 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 chun. I remember him like trembling, like not trembling. He was, you know, obviously not selling him out, but he did such an amazing show. And the Warrior came in 10 seconds, shook the ropes, you know, slam into the floor. That's it. The Warrior had a new belt. History in the making with this guy. So 1991 heavy hitters, because they were very popular. So let's move to 1992. So I guess we can do it like this. 1992, also a pretty cool line. Oh yeah, we have big guys here. Let's just start with the Nasty Boys tag team. Nasty Boys were fine, they were fun. I don't know about you, but I always thought these guys, oh yeah, these are not gonna be the ones winning the fight. In my head, they were designated as, you know, they'll never win the fight. It was just the Nasty Boys. Pretty cool figures. I mean, figure-wise, these guys are super, super fun. Once again, tag teams. When you were in that situation of, well, you can only get one toy from your parents, you know, maybe sometime it was the smartest move to get a tag team because you get two figures, pretty much. So Ricky the Dragon Steamboat. I was never a fan of this figure, to be honest with you. I would have never picked this figure if I was in that position of choosing a figure. I think it's missing the wings. It looks like an Aztec deity or something. It was weird figure. You know, Ricky the Dragon, amazing performer overall. So Another one that I will classify, Greg the Hammer Valentine, that I will classify it as being one of the oldest. They reissued. It's a similar body as Randy Savage in the sense of they have similarities in terms of, you know, the I think they call it the hammer slam, whatever, but it's, you know, the same type of body structure. But once again, for me, this guy meant my personal case, this guy was just one of the veterans, not it's just like one of those fights, like, yeah, get alone, finish the fight. I want to see the warrior, or I want to see whomever comes next. Kaku be missing the bird. I met him on a pizza place here in Miramar. It's a city nearby. He was picking up a pizza and I recognized him. He was very happy that he got recognized. Super cool dude as well. Texas Tornado with this. I know for a fact that this one, not for a fact, I'm 99% sure that Ron Ruda did the sculpt on this one. Because there's a story of them visiting Hasbro. I even have a picture. Them visiting Hasbro and Ron's son being at the office because they got a heads up that there were wrestlers were going to be, and he's carrying Ron's son on his shoulder. So Texas Tornado with the tornado twister or whatever that is. Meh. It falls. If you compare it with the rest of what we got here, oh yeah. So this guy. So tell me, like, look at this amazing tag team and the way that they look. Their promos were just insane. Like, his voice was so deep, and he used to start the promos and going all the way in, and then tell him Hawk, and then Hawk would do the high pitch, like, oh yeah, so, you know, we are a natural disaster. We are monsters. You mess with, I can't remember the promo, but it was something like you fight with kids, then you fight boys, then you fight, and then you have to deal with monsters. Amazing promos, amazing looking characters to enter the ring. They meant business, and that's why on the same year, if you put, let's be honest, if you put these four guys on the ring, who do you think is going to win? You know? This guy were meant business. So not released as a tag team because they were sold individually. However, speaking of natural disasters, earthquake, it was such a fun. I remember, so I went back to Venezuela this year, and there was a shopping mall nearby. It was actually called the shopping center, and they have an arcade, and in the arcade there was a wrestling arcade, and I remember playing with this character. Was such a hated character among people in the arcade, because the moment he stomped on the ring in that game, it was like you couldn't move because you're suffering from the shock waves, I guess. And then Typhoon they were released individually, carded individually, but putting it together, there were the natural disasters, and that was a fun, this big boys, very big boys, fun figures to have. And then I'm leaving the heavy hitters for the end, and I don't know in which way I should do it. Let's just start with a British Bulldog. I was always so impressed by the way this guy looked. He was like, like a wall. Like, I remember that guy not being able to move. Like, that was the beginning of the Heart Foundation, Calgary Stampede, Canadian performers into wrestling. You gotta give credit to the Canadians, especially the ones from Calgary, and coming from that whole Stampede, Heart Foundation source. They gave us amazing wrestlers throughout the years. Trish Stratus, Edge, Jericho, you name it. There's so many wrestlers that came, and this figure is so fun. British Bulldog, but he was Canadian in real life. And then his member of the family, the best there is, the best there was, the best there ever be, Bret the Hitman Hart. And this is why I was saying that I have an issue with Shawn Michaels, because of the Montreal screw job. I basically part ways with wrestling ever since that issue. You can spend hours, countless hours talking about the Montreal screw job between these two guys. And there's so many aftermaths and after stories that happen, you know, after the match. But that changed it for me. That made me lost respect for the industry, if you ask me. And so I was a very, very big Bret Hart fan. So that was kind of heartbreaking. In this series, 1992, it's where my favorite Hulkster came in, and that's why I gave him a belt. And the reason that I like this holster the better is because I really like the one that does this. But this one, you can put it like, you know, he was in a winning position. Amazing. You gotta have a Hulk Hogan per year. Obviously, they gave us 3 or more. I don't have the Melloways. I don't have that. It's just what it was on this collection. But this is an amazing holster. That I just added that ring. So, fan favorite, especially if you're into G.I. Joes and wrestling, Sergeant Slaughter. The Slaughter was also a game changer. He was part of that old breed of wrestlers, but at the same time, he survived and evolved, if you will, by becoming a G.I. Joe character. So you basically he was at the top of both, 2 of the most beloved things for kids back in the 90s. He was a huge wrestler, the top of his game, and at the same time, a huge G.I. Joe. He was in the movie. When I met him, I have a funny story with him, because when I met him at Joe Fest in Chattanooga, Tennessee. No, it's in Georgia, but it's not Chattanooga. Augusta, I think is the name. So I met him at Joe Fest, and I'm like, can I take a picture with you? And even though I rarely do that type of stuff, but he's Sergeant Slaughter. So I gave him every single one of my carded Joes that I have for him to sign. I remember him grabbing the Argentinian and going, oh good, the foreign stuff, and bending the card, and I'm like, oh my God, he's gonna rip it. He's gonna rip my Argentinian cards, but he signed them all up. And I remember, I'm like, all right, let's take a picture. And he just gave me a headlock, right? So he started squeezing, and squeezing for real, and squeezing for real, and it gets to a point that I'm like, this guy's gonna choke the crap out of me. I was like being choked. So I basically started tapping, like telling him like, hey look, you're doing it too, you're going too rough, I guess. And then he's like, now we're talking. And that's where he released me. Such a fun time meeting him there. I've seen him, I saw it at UltraCon as well. It's always a great time to meet the Sarge. But then, say what you want about Hulkamania and the Hulkster, or the Warrior, or everything that I said so far. The industry as a whole, from my humble perspective, I know I said we were going to talk about figures and not about something else. It's what it is nowadays, thanks to The Undertaker. I mean, if you get a glimpse of that backstage bubble, Taker was back then the main guy backstage, the main guy in the locker rooms. And then this is a character that is bigger than life. He turned it into something else. I mean, kudos to Taker for taking the industry to another level. The Undertaker has always been and will always be one of the biggest one ever. I was lucky enough to see him fighting Batista in Miami. I think it was a cage match, and those guys were killing each other. So with that said, we enter a very strange year. It's the last 2 years. So in the last 2 years, I guess let's start with Jim Neidhart. Also, he should be there with his brother-in-law, Another one of the Heart Foundation. Cool figure. I mean, look at that goatee. It's a cool figure. It's just, I will just put him with the rest of my Canadian favorites in there. But then we start getting like weird characters. So let's just start with, and let me get the Smash. Let me go grab Smash again. Where are you at, Smash? Oh. So this guy that I remember I told you got removed from demolition because he was recognized, became the Repo Man. Such a silly, let's see, how can I get it better? Such a silly skit. I was never into this kit. I always thought it was just, this is the year when things started to be awkward. You know, there are cool things, like for example, the Berserker. This was, I mean, it's a cool figure, but it's a Viking. Like, you know, they started getting really goofy in these years. And there's also things that like a Skinner, right? And I'm a Floridian, so I really don't connect with this guy. But it was all right, I guess. IRS Irving, I can't remember his last name, but it was a combination of his first name, middle name, and last name, and then he became the IRS. What is more scary than being visited by the IRS? However, that on a wrestling gimmick, I don't know about that. The Warlord, that's his name, right? The Warlord. Who else do we have here? I remember him. I liked him because as a figure, it was cool, but he looked like a Mortal Kombat character. It's a cool figure overall. I find him at shows and bins that are not related to wrestling, because the people selling them, they don't even know that this was a wrestler. And then we have guys like, you know, like the model Rick Martel. I hated this gimmick. I think he wanted it to be more like Ravishing Rick Rude, and then it was just a silly gimmick. And the figure doesn't, like, come on, dude. Who's gonna get that? Another Canadian favorite, the Mountie. This now we're talking. I really like this figure. It was a silly gimmick as well, but you know, cool figure. The head twisted on the side was always kind of weird on the figure. I understand it was part of trying to bring that persona, and then it took him what, 1, 2, 3 years, basically 4 years to give us a Virgil. Like, hello, why did it take you so long to give us a Virgil? I mean, you cannot have the $1 Million Man Ted DiBiase with this guy in the back just going like this in the promos. He never said a word. Now he spoke, but you know, this is a great compliment to Ted DiBiase, you know, having a Virgil. And then if who else? Tatanka. This was kind of fun. Tatanka. And I remember him, and his entrance was interesting, but as a figure, he was alright. It was alright. Who else is on this line? So we start seeing like Sid Vicious, right? That's what, yeah. Sid Vicious. Big guy. I don't think this figure represented it. That guy was huge. And then I will have to say that one of the key moments of that year, in my personal case, we were living abroad, and once again, but I didn't say that, but that satellite dish that I said, that you can only see it at my dad's room. So it was late at night. It was WrestleMania. I told him, like, you gotta let me go to bed late today, because it's WrestleMania. So he was like, I want to go to bed. Enough with the wrestling. Go to bed. He spent, you know, these events are like 3 hours long, especially pay-per-views. And this was in Indianapolis, I believe. And so they were beating, him and Papa Shango were beating the crap of Hogan. This Papa Shango, such a cool figure though. They were beating the crap of Hulk Hogan, and I was like mortified. And I remember my dad was in his bathroom, and then suddenly out of nowhere, who was semi out of the scene for a while, the Warrior music started and that Warrior came in running to save Hogan. I remember screaming my lungs out and my dad coming out of the bathroom like, what's going on? He thought I was being killed because I was like, it's the Warrior saving Hogan. Fun days, fun days. And this part, it's where it gets changing notes. Razor Ramon, amazing figure, amazing character. He was incredible. Oh, I never said, now that I see Razor Ramon, I never said it, but with Jake the Snake, if you haven't seen the documentary that DDT did of him, you have to go and watch that documentary. I remember meeting DDT in person at SuperCon and then making the line and getting all the way to him, and then he was like, so you want a picture, you want an autograph? And I go, I just want to shake your hand. And then I said, I remember all of these guys are like some sort of alert, because there's a lot of wackos out there that they don't understand the business and they go at him. Because I go, I had you here. And so he looked at me with an eyebrow, and his wife, I think it was his wife, they looked at me like, here we go, some jackass is gonna go and bash at him. And I go, I had you here, but now I have you here, because what you did for the Snake was incredible. You have to watch that documentary if you haven't. Amazing wrestling documentary. I obviously like this Razor Ramon, rest in peace, and this is an amazing figure. However, for me, the Razor Ramon that I connect with was obviously on WCW, and you know, with Hogan turning into the dark side and whatever. And speaking of WCW, this is that time where we start getting an influx of WCW figures. Because back then, believe it or not, now that's kind of diluted, but back then, Ric Flair, Ric Flair was such an amazing performer as well. No matter how old he gets, this guy like goes hard, all in for the business. He's such a temple in the business. But for me, Ric Flair, the Golden Boy, at least in those days, 1993, I think, he was like a WCW face. So seeing him on a WWF at that time card was kind of like, I don't know. Yo, this is where we get, let me see if I'm gonna have to sort of like get down a bit. So we're on the last year. Once again, this is not a complete, look at this. Look at how I look, and I still have one. Look at this. Amazing sight. So once again, it's not a complete collection, it's just a bunch of them, and I just ordered them by years. This last wave is the hardest one to find, especially carded. There are guys that you will never find, you will have to pay a pretty penny to get them. And I just have a handful of them. Samu, and this begins, the head shrinker was the gimmick for this guy, but this is also another member of a founding father of a new family that basically, the Samoans, that basically took over. It says Samu here on the side and then Samoa here. That basically took over the business, because the Rock and a lot of family members from that family have taken over the business, and they're taking it to the next level. This is Mr. Perfect, if I'm not mistaken. Because that was suspicious, right? Yeah, this is Mr. Perfect. And I think this was called a Perfect Flex. I'm almost certain this is Mr. Perfect, yeah. Well, don't cook me in the comments. Yeah, this is Perfect. Mr. Perfect, yeah. Pretty cool figure. I don't know why it took him that long to make a Mr. Perfect, because that was a great gimmick. And then once again, talking about that crossover from the WCW, this is a Scott Steiner. I don't have Rick. This is the only one that was on the collection, but for me, this is a WCW wrestler. The newest iteration, let me go and get the other one so we can compare. Gene Duggan, Hawk Sarge, Jim Duggan, where you at, brother? There we go. So I don't know why they made him. This was more like the American flag carrying type of thing, and they gave him that weird 2-color beard stuff. And if you compare it to the first one, I prefer this one. It's more Jim Duggan than this, but you know, cool. Pretty much same model, but just different paint app. And then we have Lex Luger. Keep talking about the WCW guys crossing over, and for me, Luger was always a WCW face. Super big guy, jacked as hell. I was so impressed to see him, you know, getting older and body change after being such a massive guy. Dunk, this skit was on point. On point. The idea to do this character was incredible. Such a popular character. This is actual like hair looking like product. Doink the Clown was incredible. This is the year where, like I said, the hard to find cards are. The Giant Gonzalez Argentino. He was from Argentina. This was a crazy, strange gimmick, and Vince was into bigger than life characters, and I guess that's why he gave him the job. There's a I heard Taker the other day talking on a podcast saying, and it's a weird, like he's standing like sideways. If you see, there's a twist, but you can only move. You can only do this the feet stone. That's it. So it's an awkward sculpt, if you ask me. And then I'm closing with the only carded one that we have from that year, which is Bam Bam Bigelow. Amazing fig. Obviously, I'm missing guys like Yokozuna and some of the other players. Another Taker, another Bret Hitman Hart. Yeah, this was Mr. Perfect. That was Mr. Perfect. Amazing cards, man. So anyways, this is just me taking advantage that we're not open to the public today. That box was where I was putting my camera and talking about wrestling figures that I love so much. I was supposed to do this video with my friend Roger Cuevas, but he never showed up. I've been asking him to do this video for almost 2 years, but he never showed up. So anywho, just showing a neat wrestling collection. I hope you like this video. Please help us spread the word. Share this video to whomever you think is gonna like it. Like, subscribe, check us out, give us some love, and thank you so much for watching.